And with that, we should be live. And it's me. It's me, Dave Slusher, your little podcast buddy, now your little video buddy. We're here live for the first Evil Genius Chronicles Patreon Hangout. This is a reward, let's say a reward with air quotes, for reaching the tier, the $40 an episode tier, which it's one of those things where it is simultaneously low. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, and at the same time, it's so much. it, it really, when I started this, I honestly did not. It was not a given to me that $40 an episode was was an achievable goal. So uh, so I'm just so happy that anybody is here and cares. Hey, there's Nutty. I see Nutty joining.
Hello, I feel like
Excellent,
romper
excellent,
room.
excellent. I was more.
Oh no.
Well, I will continue. And just as a check, let me try this to make sure. Let me see if Nutty can Nutty hear me?
I can
Wait.
hear you.
Okay, there you are. So it may just be. Let me try this. Now let me go back here. We're debugging this a little live and say something else.
Hello.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
All right, just a little temporary thing. And Ken Kennedy, if you were watching or listening, join anytime, drop off anytime. There's certainly no. This could not possibly be more freeform if you wanted it to be. So, thank you for joining Nutty. Thank you for being a patron. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
It's been, my gosh, like 2 or 3 months since we did one of these. We had a real burst of hangout activity.
Yes.
Where we were on. It seemed it may have only been 2, but it seemed like a lot. It seemed like we had a stretch there where we on many.
I think it may have been 3. I'm not sure. But yeah, because you were on my show and I was on your show. And I feel like you were on my show too, or maybe we were on something else. But it was fun.
There's no way to determine this. This is lost to the history of lost to the sands of time.
Our super fans know.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because we talked 2 hours about Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so jazzed after we talked. And I don't believe I believe I'm on the same episode of season 1 as I was then. That was it seems pathetic that it's so difficult for me to watch television. I'm not even I still have 1 episode of Agents of Shield yet to watch. I still have 1 episode of Agent Carter to watch. I did catch up with The Flash, and so three television programs in a single season, and it's July, and I'm not done with I'm not done with 2 of them. Insane.
Yeah, I've got so many things on my Netflix list to watch. Like serious dramas and very important pieces and totally geeky things. And then half the time I end up just watching Scrubs, which is nothing TV, because when I'm actually watching TV, I don't want to think. I don't want to pay attention. I'm just like, ugh.
That is one of my problems, is that I'm watching I'm watching stuff I care about. So I want to give it was kind of like when I watched The Wire. It took me I got the whole series DVDs, and it took a long time to watch it because I was never going to sit there with my laptop while I was watching it. So I need 55 minutes of solid, uninterrupted, full attention time. And it was hard to slot in. It was like, what I really want to do is screw around with my laptop with one half an ear and one half an eye, and kind of sort of pay attention if something happens.
Yeah, the ADD life.
So you attended Balticon, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, it was, I want to say it was probably like the weekend before, and I still had not admitted to myself that it was not happening.
Yeah.
That I had like a 1% like outside chance maybe I'm just going to get up and go, but clearly it did not happen. How was the PG Holyfield memorial stuff?
It was fantastic. Your video was played,
Oh Lord.
which is why I tweeted to you during it. The joke, the song, and the passage. And that was really nice. There was all of this is going to be made available online at some point when it's perfect. There was a special video sent from Evo and Sheila that included a couple of nice surprises in it. And a couple, I can't remember everybody that sent, there were like little videos. And then there was this video that Viv had spent the last, I don't know, month, 2 months working on, which was just photos and other videos that we had collected and filled with songs. And there were a couple of songs written for PG, and then of course the very special Damn You Holyfield rewritten to Miss You Holyfield by Kim the Comic Book Goddess, which was pretty amazing. It was pretty awesome. And yeah, no, and then once that was done, it was party time, and we all started having fun, lots of pictures. They brought out a cake and we punched it, and it was pretty fantastic. We all had a lot of fun, and there was so much food left over. Because everyone's like, what can I bring? And it's like, bring what you want. And someone said, we should have fruit, so it's not all bad snacks and vegetables. And next thing you know, there's like a 6-foot table worth of fruit and vegetables just sitting there. So, be careful when you tell geeks, oh yeah, just bring something, because they will all bring something.
Did all the overflow end up in the con suite?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, that sounds fantastic. It was definitely bittersweet to miss it, and it just felt just barely in reach. The whole time I was just, and Heroes Con felt exactly the same way. It was probably similar time scale. This was the weekend before where I said, no, absolutely. I kind of screwed myself on that. Both of them were hampered. So whatever the possibility was, both of them were hampered by taking a week off of work and going to the beach and brother's family. So that makes it a tough sell to also go and junk off for a weekend. Trying to do another travel, it just made it impossible.
Yep.
And Dragon Quest almost certainly go on exactly the same dynamic. It'll probably be, August 24th when I am not going. I see Ken Kennedy is trying to join. All right, Ken. Oh, boy. Oh, my goodness. Are we achieving a quorum? That's pretty cool.
There you go.
Welcome. Daniel K. Boyd in the house. Ken Kennedy in the house.
Yeah,
hello.
hey.
I'm late.
What I see. Go ahead.
This is Ken. I'm having to use my phone, and it's just pointed up at the ceiling, so I figured a video shot of my roof or my ceiling wasn't going to be that exciting.
And welcome, Dan.
Hello. Sorry I'm late, but go ahead and tell me everything I missed.
Yeah, not that much.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Basically reminiscing about a con I didn't go to, but wistfully wish I had. So, and then Ken, did you attend Dragon or Heroes Con?
We actually ended up not going because we had a couple other things going on, and since I found out you weren't going, I just bailed on it too.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
It was all about the paid lunch.
Heroes to me is like it's possibly the most pure convention that I go to anywhere, right? It's got one single focus. There's been no scope creep. There's no drift from that mission. We're here about comics and comic books, and yeah, there's nothing about movies. There's nothing about TV shows. It's just comics people, and nothing but comics and big dirty boxes from old comics, and I just love it so much. I really hate the years I don't get to go.
So,
All right,
so
everybody.
Heroes Con has not fallen prey to what Comic Con has fallen prey to, which is talk about they say they're about comics, but end up just being a media con.
No, that's exactly right. Dragon Con has the same thing, right? I mean, Dragon Con never. I went in. I can't remember where I went. It was 9 or 9. I mean, it was when it was in a single hotel ballroom, and it never really made pretensions for being. It was always kind of an omnicon. Very, but Heroes, uh, I guess because it's like a singular vision, basically from one guy. For most of the last 30 years, this guy's kind of stretched out a little now. His kids are doing some of the stuff, and the employee store. So Shelton Drum, but I guess it's just really they just. I imagine there's a temptation resistant there because it seems like it would be maybe even easier to go the other route. But like they definitely seem to be like holding the line. I love that about them so much, right? It's not really, other than scale, it's not that much different when I went in 1991, or I think I went in like 1987 or 86 or something. I was still in high school the very first time I went, and it's definitely, other than being about 10 or 20 times as big, it's the same thing. It's guys sitting there with Bristol board, sketch pads, you know, drawing sketches for you and signing things for you and boxes of comics. And I just couldn't be happier. You know, I always refer to myself and my compatriots as the list guys, right? I come there and I have like a 14-page wish list, and I'm standing in depot boxes next to a bunch of other people who have 14 pages in front of them, and I am seldom as happy in that little moment, you know, on my knees, on a cement floor, reading over a long box. My back hurts, I'm sweating, and I've got a pile. I have frequently at Heroes Con ended up with piles of comics. I had no exit plan. And I had this pile of like 120 comics at this 25-cent bin. I did not have any way to carry it out of there. And I was like, I hadn't thought through how I'm going to leave this vendor. Who finally had pity and gave me a box to carry it out in. But like, I had no plan. I was like, all right, here's $30. Uh-oh. Now what am I going to do? So I've taken to like stuffing my backpack with like Kroger bags, so that at least I have an emergency way to transport these things. But no, again, let me thank all three of you. All three of you are patrons of the Patreon. Thank you so much, and I thank everyone. And I think actually, before we get too much further, I think I'm going to do a reading of the patrons. Let's do that.
So, Dave, before you start your reading of the patrons, I don't know if it's just me, but you seem to be going out of sound, like you're getting very muffled.
Okay.
And it seems to happen whenever there's noise on somebody else's mic, so I don't know if you have a setting that is auto-ducking or something.
Let me see if that's, to be completely honest, I'm not sure. There's a certain amount of Google
Magic?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of Google mojo that I don't. There's a black box to me. Let's just see. Well, I'll just go for it, and let's just see. We'll see if we'll see what happens. Okay. All right. Here we go. Robert Harvey. Thank you so much. Daniel Boyd. There on my left as I'm looking at him. Thank you, Daniel Boyd.
Thank you.
Charlotte Kennedy, the lovely Charlotte Kennedy. Thank you so much. Mark Risen Hopkins. Thank you. Ken Kennedy, present. Thank you so much. Derek Coward, donor number 1, the first person aboard, the OG, Derek Coward. Thank you. Reed Knight. Thank you. Paul Reynolds. Thank you. The enigmatic Tony Ewing. I thank you so much, Tony Ewing. I still have no idea who you are, but I appreciate you so much. J. Edward Winia. Thank you. He sent his regrets. He could not be here, but thank you, Jay. John Richardson, thank you so much. Stuart Maxwell, thank you. Chuck Tomasi, thank you so much. Shannon Nelson, I thank you, Shannon. Craig Stepp, thank you. Andrew Heron, I thank you, sir. Paul Smith, thank you. PJ Cabrera, thank you. Kyle Nishioka, thank you. Paul Fisher, uh, thank you so much. I had a thought that misfired. Thank you, Paul Fisher. Thomas Gideon, thank you, Thomas Gideon. Adam Rittenauer, thank you. Steve Holden, thank you. Nutty Nuchas, in the house, thank you so much. The enigmatic Angela Lee, thank you. And Grant Bishoko, Saturday Morning Media, thank you. All right. I actually love that. It really is. I'm not joking when I say in the show that that's my favorite part. That is my favorite part. I love to do that so much. Conceivably, there may get a day when the list gets so long to be that it gets unwieldy, but I don't even know if I care. I don't know if it can get so long that I wouldn't. If it takes 10 minutes to read, I don't care. Michael Butler, when he reads his list, I don't know how long it takes on the Rock and Roll Geek Show. It feels like a long time when he reads his donors. It feels like it takes at least 5 minutes, and I love it. It makes me laugh every single time.
Well, and he goes into like very, specifics also. He takes like a long time into it. I as a listener, it's never an issue. I actually kind of like it.
It just feels like a neat little I don't know. It just feels personal,
Like I said before, it's Romper Room.
Yeah, exactly. What was the lady's name on Romper Room?
I forget, but I do know that each area had different ladies and different people. They were like a friend of mine. He grew up outside London, and it was his teacher, his school teacher, was one of the Romper Room ladies. So basically, they would film it as a donut and have like the main parts of the show the same for everybody, and then the I see so and so and that lady was someone local. So there were like 20 different versions of Romper Room.
Interesting. So it's like a franchise.
Yeah.
This is so. I'll tell a story of one of my childhood moments. They had it would have filmed in, I can't remember if it was Lincoln, Nebraska or Omaha. I think it was Lincoln, and it was Cartoon Corral. And so it was the same kind of thing. It was like it was a middle afternoon show. This was one, it had a local host, and they would play cartoons, So probably in the 70s and 80s, probably every town big enough to have a TV station had one of these, right? That was kind of they all had something like that. And they were all named something different. It was not as cool as having Ghoulardi or, anyone like that. But, it was just a little local thing. So you applied to get tickets, and we did. And so we were visiting my grandparents, and we were in Lincoln, and that's why I said I don't remember if it was Lincoln or Omaha, but one of the ones. And so we go to the ticket thing, and the first thing I remember is being completely confused that the game show, like that Bert Convey hosted, like where those people were. Because I could see on the monitors that the show's playing, over the air, but it's like, where are all these people? Because in my mind, I thought that they were going to go off stage, and then we were all going to get on the stage, as if it was all coming out of one theater. And so I was like, how's this how's this on the air if these people aren't here? And then like the show started, and it was, it was so not fun to be on. It was actually kind of really a drag to actually be sitting in there. And the hostess was like really mean. Like the second the camera went off, she was like really surly, and so there were some kind of producer type that was kind of nice to the kids. And so we were all, probably between 6 and, I don't know, 11 years old, something like that. And I remember thinking, I'm actually kind of, so Calamity Jane was her name. And I remember, like, by the time I was done, I was like, I'm actually kind of scared of Calamity Jane. I don't even remember what the thing was, but I won. They have some kind of little contest where you had to name something. I think maybe they exposed, it was like a show on that channel, and they would expose a block of it, and whoever could name what the show was first would get it. And I won that. And my prize was a box of Skittles, like a 36 bags of Skittles, which they didn't just hand you, they gave you a coupon, and then I forgot to ever mail it in. And my mom had pity on me and mailed it in, right before the expiration. And then it came, and I believe I ate maybe one bag of this, and somehow my brother got into that and ate 34 or 35 Skittles. I got basically nothing out of this whole deal. And I remember the whole TV thing was just so bizarre to me. Like, how could any of this be happening? So that was my my experience. My first experience with entertainment was not. I didn't walk out thinking, "Wow, this is cool." I thought, "Sucks."
I always wanted to be on Reading Rainbow because they filmed not far from my house.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine, her daughter actually was on Reading Rainbow. It was for the Farting Dog book.
Oh yeah.
We were doing a project where we had access to all of these videos for schools, and we were setting up a presentation to show the teachers of the school what they could do with it. And I was like, oh, look, they've got all the Reading Rainbow stuff in here. And she goes, oh, look up the farting dog. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, that's my daughter. And her daughter was like, in her 20s at that point. And I was like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. I never got my books never got accepted for Reading Rainbow.
I'm getting to experience a certain chunk of this kind of stuff. So we're watching the Magic School Bus.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are on Netflix, which is so I'm seeing things that I had never seen. Right, I was not when that came out. I was not in the demographic to see it.
Yeah.
And like Magic School Bus, I actually don't like too much. Some of these ones I like. Magic School Bus is kind of a rough watch. It may have been pretty amazing in '92, but when I watch it now, I think, wow, this is kind of at the bottom end of stuff that we're watching.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a bit old for the Magic School Bus as well, but it was never impressive to me. The books were definitely much better than the show.
So it seems to, I think most cartoons that we watch, I'm gonna guess they're either, if they're not a Disney thing, so anything that's not Disney-ish or in that, I hear a lot of Canadian accents, like
Okay.
Paw Patrol. Like when the guys talk, oh, sorry, pup. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I think, I want to say it was Berenstain Bears. I think Michael Cera is one of the is Brother Bear in that.
Oh, cool. Well, that
I,
would make sense.
it seems like about the right time. He probably would have been, 10 or 12 when they were filming those.
Well,
Or,
Canada gives a lot of grants for the arts, so filming and producing in Canada is so much cheaper than doing it in LA. So that doesn't surprise me. Caillou, which I hate, by the way.
Mhm.
I think every parent hates Caillou, though. Uh, is completely done in Canada. I think it's done in Quebec even.
I don't know who likes Caillou other than like there is no one over the age of 6 that likes Caillou. I
No.
don't because I listened to Sean Cohen's podcast, and so he's a Toronto comedian, and he was talking about Caillou, how much he hated Caillou one day. I was like, every single person hates Caillou except for the kids.
It's again, the books were so much better. When I was younger and babysitting, I would read all of these books to kids, and the Caillou books, I was like, oh, these are pretty cool. These aren't bad. And then I watched the show, and I was like, oh, I want to smack that little kid.
And his little like that bald, the little bald head is not
No.
it's not as endearing as a Charlie Brown head. I just everything he does is whiny and oh.
Yep.
What's left me feeling a little strange now that my boys are teenagers is we watched a lot of shows with them, like the kind you're talking about when they were young, and those were kind of the sucky ones, but there also were some good ones that I thought were really good. And as they aged out of them, I was really disappointed that we couldn't keep watching them because I thought like Jimmy Neutron and some of those shows were really well done. And I've caught myself being tempted with Netflix to when I'm home alone to watch one, but I've resisted so far. We'll see how long that lasts.
I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah.
I know a couple of fathers who that was their introduction to the new My Little Pony, was watching it with their daughters, and suddenly they would look around and realize their daughter had left like an hour ago and they're still watching.
Yeah.
My big thing is I still have to figure out how to turn off the Netflix autoplay if that's possible because it's many a time where it's been like, all right, this is the last video for the day, and then if you're not there to catch it at that moment, it's like, oh my god, how do we start another one of these? So I would like to make that a semi-automatic thing. I don't even know how to do that. But
You have to adjust your settings in a browser. You have to go
Yeah.
use a computer and go online to change those settings.
okay.
You can also change how your subtitles show up. So if you have like subtitles or closed captioning on, you can change how it displays, like the font color, if it goes on the top or the bottom of the screen, and so forth.
Mhm.
So,
So which other shows did you like? So Jimmy Neutron, because I'm actually in the market for new things for her to watch.
Well, it ranged with age, of course. The really young stuff was unbearable, the dinosaur Barney, and some of that kind of stuff. But I'd say probably starting maybe around 8 or so, there were a number of good shows. They had an interest in Batman, and there's a World for Batman cartoon made in the '90s that's for younger kids. Still has a little bit of violence in it, but it's nothing that's very scary. And let me see. I think Phineas and Ferb, which again is a cartoon clearly not just made for children. I think anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's how I think that's what. So the ones that I can stand to watch are the ones like that have that have that double layered thing. They're clearly loaded up with jokes that kids will never get. Right.
Right.
Octonauts is one of those ones to me, which I don't know if any of you have ever seen it because you probably passed that. But so Octonauts, they're in there and it's very formulaic, but I can see like all the references to like plucky British military fiction. The leader goes, I'm like, I can actually see the tradition behind this. I'm like, it just makes me, a lot of that stuff just really makes me laugh. And so that's probably, of all of them, that's like my favorite one. And then I could actually see watching, by myself.
I think for the really like little kid stuff, you can never really go wrong with Thomas the Tank Engine. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to watch that on my own, but it was definitely one of those, I don't want to stab myself in the eye when this is on, so that's good. Bubble Guppies was always a bad one for that, or the Wiggles, or those horrible ones where it's just like, kill me now. I actually didn't mind the Teletubbies too much, but there's such a brief period that appeals to the kids, and I think now they're CG people, so it's really weird. I think this might be slightly old for Pumpkin, but she might be getting close to the age. I definitely suggest the My Little Pony, the new My Little Pony, because it appeals to the younger kids, and it actually is quite good. I was forced to watch it thanks to a donation a couple of years back, and wow, I was really surprised how many adult jokes are thrown in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they have a pretty large following of 35-year-old men, I believe. So.
Yeah.
To work with one of those who had the ponies on his desk at work. I don't know if we've watched the cartoon, but we have some of the books. So we have the comic version of them. So we've read them. So we're kind of familiar with the basic story and the characters.
A great show also for younger kids would be Word World.
Is that the one where the things, they spell them out and then that
Yes.
makes... Yeah, we've seen that one. She also likes Word Girl. She likes a lot of... She's been big on PBS Kids lately, so we've been watching a lot of Wild Kratts. What else? Wild Kratts, Word Girl, Odd Squad. And Odd Squad is one of those few, like... So I'm hoping to steer us away from those Disney live-action things, which those are stab your eye with a pencil show. So the only time we ever see them is, say, in doctors' offices, or I think they show them at the gym. Like, we take her to Fun Gym, they show that, and I'm always like, please don't look at the screen, don't develop a taste for this, because they are horrific. They're incredible. Like, they've got this, I don't know, it's almost like the acting is almost like a minstrel. It's like a modern version of minstrelly type. Is so broad and like so bizarre. I'm like, oh my god. So anytime we get an actor that came out of that, they gotta prove to me that they can shake some of that before I watch them in anything. Like, oh god, help me. Anyone who came up through that, you got got a ways to go. But Odd Squad, at least I can watch that one without freaking out.
What about classic Sesame Street? Like good old Sesame Street. Is she too old for that?
No, I don't think so. I think you get pretty old for that. I was probably watching it. I think I was. When did it go on? I think I was maybe like 2 or 3 when it started. So I was like the very first generation that kind of had that. To the point where older people were talking about, as older people always do. The grandparents would say how this is ruining my attention span and all this. The fact that I can count to 20 in Spanish doesn't. It seems lost on them, but I probably couldn't do it minus this show. But yeah, we watch that sometimes. So I'm the softie on this, and I'm more than willing to let some violence slide. So she's watching the Avengers cartoon, which is probably by any standard way too old for her at 4. But I don't actually have that much problem with cartoon comic book violence per se. She loves Captain America, and I honestly don't know why she loves him so much. I think it's just the iconic. I think it has a lot to do with the shield and the costume. Because I don't know that until she watched this cartoon, she wanted to watch this cartoon so she could see some Captain America. I don't know that she knew anything about him other than that, just how he looks. But she thought that the way he looks is great. And they had a local comic convention that it was like a first year startup thing, but they had Jim Steranko in for one day, which seemed kind of crazy to me. That he was coming down for a startup Myrtle Beach convention, but I guess they paid him and he came. And so we went and met him, and he was super nice to her, and got a Captain America poster, that was like the full-on Steranko mode. And originally, my first impulse was to not get it signed to her because I thought, well, she's just a little kid. What does she care? And then I thought, because it was one of the few people in this whole building that you had to pay for their autograph. So we had bought the thing, and then it was like another $10 or $15 to get his autograph. And I thought, we don't need to do it for her. And then I thought twice, and I thought, when is she ever going to have another chance to have Steranko sign something to her? Let's pay the $10. So on the principle of least regrets, I said, I'm not going to regret the $10. I may regret not getting the autograph. So we did that, and it's hanging over her bed right now. But that was the whole reason we watched this Avengers show, was so she could see Captain America. And I probably like the first or second episode, I remember thinking, there's maybe a little more punching and shooting and that I was in the market for. I was thinking it was going to be more like one of those Teen Titan Go type shows, and then it wasn't. It was a little, probably middle school and above type thing. But I just let it ride. Thus far, she doesn't seem too hampered by it. So
There's a couple of things that I'm afraid to try again, but I would love to try again. I know my nephew is really into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I really want to watch it with him, but I'm scared because I mean it was pretty lame to begin with, but there was enough there. I started by reading the comics, and then when the cartoon came out, I was like, all right, this is really lame by comparison. And then the movie came out, and I was perfect. That was like perfect for me. It was a nice balance of the two.
I'm an old enough nerd. I can actually remember the thing before the comic that was the genesis of the whole deal, which is in the Comic Buyer's Guide, which was kind of a weekly newspapery thing on the comic field. They had done an editorial cartoon making fun of mid 80s X-Men around the time that Storm got her mohawk, and it was like mutant teenagers with mohawks or something like that. But it was Eastman and Laird did that.
Yeah.
And not that long afterwards, they refined that to the Turtles. But somewhere in, I don't know, like 84 maybe. Because a friend in Augusta, Georgia, actually was doing one of a weekly cartoon for them. So we were every time it came out, it would come into the comic shop and we would turn to that page. And I remember seeing that cartoon. I'm like, it wasn't even that good a joke. It was, but that was what became the Ninja Turtles.
That's awesome. I found the comic books in my brother's stash. My brother, much older than me, right? And I found them in his stash, and I just remember I would just sit there on top of the box of comics, just flipping through Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was totally age inappropriate for me at the time, but I just loved it. The art, I loved it. There was something about it. It was just really, really great. If you're into Turtles, there is a documentary on Netflix, which I think is just like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fandom or whatever it is, and it's quite good. They made it a few years ago, and they go through the whole progression from the as you said, the Mohawks, and then the original comics, and then how they got the cartoon show, and how everything fell into place. And it goes so far that they even get the original voice actors back, and they talk about where they came up with the voices. So you've got James Avery standing there hanging out with the guy that did Krang, and they're just talking back and forth and joking around in their voices, and it was such a fun watch.
Cool. Yeah, that's one of those blind spots to me, which is I was kind of around when the comics came, but there was actually a stretch where I didn't watch TV kind of in college. So I have this missing, like this eclipsed area of pop culture. Like I've never seen the Wonder Years. I've watched very little Star Trek: The Next Generation. That kind of late '80s. I didn't even own a TV for a stretch of time, and then I had no real interest in it. There was a period where literally the only show I watched was the Days and Nights of Molly Dodd.
I remember that.
It was on Friday night. I had a period. There was this period where I had quit drinking. So I had decided to take, or actually on my way to quitting drinking, what I decided was that Friday nights were my night. So I was still, it was either a junior or maybe a senior in college, and I was already kind of burned out on the party life that I had pursued for a number of years. So I was like, Friday night's my night. I'm not ever going out. Maybe if there was a concert, but it's basically my night. So I would go to the laundromat, do my laundry, which is very, very empty on a Friday. It's very easy to get a dryer on Friday night at the laundromat, and I would watch Days and Nights of Molly Dodd, and that was like my me time. It was the first time I ever had the me time. It's like, all right, I'm doing nothing. Go out and party, fine. I'll be here with my sappy soap opera-y dramedy.
I've enjoyed the Star Trek series. You mentioned Next Generation. We started at the beginning of Next Generation with the boys to give them a little bit of a pedigree anyway, and we've made it through that DS9, and we're on the sixth season of Voyager, and that's all through Netflix. And that's why I can't imagine Netflix a better deal in terms of media entertainment other than the Evil Genius Chronicles. Than Netflix. I mean, $8 a month, and I mean, if you can't find something to watch, you don't want to watch television.
Yeah, it's so I'm still believe I've only seen 3 episodes of Daredevil, too. Adding to the other shows that I haven't gotten watched yet, but the 3 that I've seen have blown me away. I can't wait to get to the rest of them, and I can't wait for the follow-on series. I can't wait to like every one of those series, with the Jessica Jones, the Luke Cage, and then the Defenders. I can't wait. They're so good.
Yeah, I just finished Derek,
Mhm.
Ricky Gervais BBC show. Amazing, amazing. Yeah, you watch if you like that sort of thing, you'll laugh through the whole show and then you'll cry at the end. I guarantee you. Or I'm just a weak person, but whatever.
Like I said, I cried at the end of Clerks too, so I don't think that much. Yeah, the somewhere like in Evernote, I have that list. I read part of it in the Beyond the Wall Hangout of just seasons of shows that I want to watch, and I added it up, and it was like 400 episodes, and I've added stuff since then, and I've watched maybe 40 episodes this year. So at that rate, we're talking about at least 10 years of entertainment, and they're still making it. So I'm never going to catch up, but the nice thing is that I'll never run out. So
Absolutely.
All right, so I've been kind of steering and driving this. Is there anything, any topics any of y'all want to bring up?
Mm, I just have something to add. I'm not sure if I've told you about my game with rewatching The Next Generation. You've the first couple seasons are very awkward,
Mhm.
especially between like Picard and Wesley, and they were really trying for this he doesn't like children thing. If you put in your head that Picard is Wesley's father, it's Wesley's real father is Picard, all of a sudden all of those awkward scenes make sense. Up
Interesting.
to when Crusher starts freaking out about this video thing that she found of Jack, who it's a video message he recorded for Wesley shortly after he was born, and she's not sure if she should give it to him. And it's like, well, of course she's not sure because he has a relationship with his father, and it really changes everything.
Hmm.
Plus, noticing the Manny skirts. That's a whole new thing. I never noticed it until a couple of years ago, and I was like, what the heck is that? Which is kind of progressive when you think about the 80s. They, in the first season, you know how there's the short mini skirt that the women wear? Well, they also had men in them
Mhm.
because it was a progressive culture, and they were thinking, well, yeah, men might want to wear the mini skirt uniform. And I love it.
See, at the time, I really didn't like Next Generation. I watched the first episode mainly because, as a at that point lifelong Days of Our Lives watcher, I knew that John Delancey, who played Eugene on Days of Our Lives, was going to be Q. I'm like, okay, great, I'll watch this. And I was like, ooh, I didn't love that. And then I just kind of didn't watch it. And the same guy that I said that did the cartoons, he also did cartoons for Starlog. And so this guy would, every time I talked to him, he would ask me if I had watched Next Generation. And I would watch an episode. And I would watch it, and I would think, this is some god-awful thing. And he would ask me next time. I said, I watched an episode. It was terrible. And he said, which one? And I tell him, he's like, oh, yeah, that was a bad one. Try another one. And this a couple of years until I finally gave up. I remember one where they were evacuating a planet, basically, and the planet was Ireland. And they're like bringing the sheep onto the Enterprise, and I thought, oh my God, what am I watching here? And he's like, oh yeah, no, that's not a great one. Just try again. I was like, I try another one, and so I've probably seen maybe 10 episodes of Next Generation, over the entire series. So that might be one that I might be worth sitting down and watching that someday. So I'll put that on the giant voluminous list.
Some of the storylines weren't tops, but I think for me it's the progression of the characters and that feeling like over a period of time you actually know them really well and you see what happens to them and how they change. I think that's for me the attraction. Good character development if it was a weak storyline.
So I actually make a Next Generation analogy. So in the recent Constantine DC comic, like the New 52 reboot, when they shut down Hellblazer and started up this new comic, I didn't really like it very much for a long time, and it finally kind of put my finger on what I didn't like about it, and it's that most of those issues were structured the way any Next Generation episode that was about Geordi saving the Enterprise, they have a structure, and that is, try the flimflebulator. No, I tried it, it didn't work. Let's try reversing the input to the skipbopulator. Oh, I tried it, it didn't work. Well, let's try this thing, and it worked. So you try three things that you've never heard of, and finally the last one works and the Enterprise is saved. Great. And there's nothing to grab onto. And this Constantine, it was like, let me try this spell of zibbity zobbity. Oh, that failed. And let me try this, and that failed. And let me try this spell, and it succeeded. Like, it's exactly the same structure, and I don't really.
It's House.
I've never seen an episode of House.
It's the same thing. It's, well, let's treat for this. No, that wasn't that, and that caused more complications. Let's treat for this. No, that wasn't that. So, and then finally, in the last 5 minutes, he remembers something and figures it out. Yeah.
That's funny, but by the time I stopped, I watched ER. I was a charter watcher of ER, because like when it first started, it poached a lot of those young actors from a lot of other shows. So it was kind of like a super group of its time, right? So if you think back to '93 or '94, whenever it started, and I watched it for at least 10 years, and by the end, I was so angry with the show because it had morphed into this message that was basically what you really need to save people is to care harder than anyone else cares. And all these standard operating procedures, they're for pussies. A maverick who's willing to really care so hard that they make everything, they can heal the sick and, playing by your own rules. That's the way you accomplish anything. And, who cares about rules? Who cares about procedures or medical ethics or anything like that? What we really need is just a hero. Like, come on now. And it would be over and over and over again. It's like, oh, the hell with you and your rigid rules. I'm going to save this man.
Yeah.
So by the time that ended, I was so tired of the show. I was like, please, could somebody stop this show?
Yeah, I worked in a healthcare environment for about 8 years in IT, and I can back you up on that. The protocols are very rigid, and you do not violate them, or you'll quickly find yourself on the way out the door. No two ways.
Mm-hmm. And they're rigid for a reason, because we don't want people playing your hunches has a place, but it's not, in a medical environment, it's not the best place for that.
Nope. Outcomes-based medicine requires that you follow the rules, period.
Speaking of outcome-based medicine, so I will just give a little Eat to Live update. So today is the 14th day of when I kind of started this. I hesitate to call it a diet because it really is more of a lifelong strategy, and I don't really plan on going off of this thing. And like the day I started was more or less a whim. Like I do a lot of things on whims, without a lot of. You probably get that from me. Is that there may not necessarily be a lot of forethought into a number of things I do. And so Penn Jillette had been talking about it and saying that book was the basis of his diet, that he lost 100 pounds on. And I read the book, and after a day of reading it or 2 days, I'm like, okay, I'm in, and went and got some kale and started. So I was 211 the day I started. Today I was 196.8. I'm down about 13 pounds in 14 days, something like that, without ever being hungry, because it is the recommendation is to eat a pound of raw leafy greens and a pound of cooked vegetables. It is hard to eat that much food. There's never a point where you say, oh, I wish I had some more. It's like, oh, Jesus, there's a lot of kale. That's an awfully big bowl of kale. That's an awfully big bowl of spinach. Let me do what I can with this. So, thus far, it's been really successful. So,
are you doing the no meat part of it?
I am doing that. I mean, with mild. I mean, there's been minor variations. Like, I was at the Chinese restaurant with my daughter, and I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to eat this way there, because I remembered them having more vegetable dishes than they do, but it's mostly broccoli and chicken and broccoli, something like that. So there's meat in everything, and so there was one that I just couldn't pick out all the meat, and I was like, I'll just eat the meat that's on my plate, which was a very minor part of it. But so I have eaten some meat. I took a bite, like a small bite of a hamburger last night, just because I thought, let me just have this much.
Yeah, I picked up the book a couple of weeks ago. I heard Penn talk about it on his Sunday school, and I heard you talk about it, I think, the last show maybe, or the one before that, I'm not sure. And I'm down with it, except the no meat part. That's just not going to happen for me. But I think taking the meat and putting it into control is a really good idea for me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the real interesting part about it is the whole notion of nutrient per calorie, right? Which is, how much vitamin, how much protein, how much everything are you getting per calorie you consume? Which I don't believe I've ever heard anybody think about it that way. which is if you're going to eat 100 calories of something, so you could get one of those little 100-calorie cookie things.
Oh, those are horrible.
Right. Which gives you basically nothing. Or you
Right.
100 calories of lettuce, or romaine lettuce or spinach or something like that, and you're actually getting a big chunk of protein, like more protein than you would think, because 100 calories is a giant pile of it.
Yeah.
Spinach does have protein, and kale has protein.
Right.
So, so that actually really does. It made a lot of sense to me. Now, like all those kind of books, I was actually looking at the Goodreads reviews on it, and it got like several 1- and 2-star reviews because it was padded. I'm like, have you never read any other book of this genre? They're all have to be padded because you could. I mean, a magazine article could tell you the real meat of it, right? There's always one chapter that's the chapter, and then everything else is padded so that it's big enough to sell as a book. I mean, that's the way they'll always all be. There's going to be a lot of case studies and a lot of the history of how you eat this way and the history of how you eat that way. So they're always going to be padded. I was like, buy the book, chapter 8, read it. But so to me, I am looking forward. So I'm basically planning on going with the program, which gives me about 4 more weeks until I lighten up, and then I've got my 200 calories a day to play with. So if I want to eat, a dessert or something sugary or whatever, as long as you kind of keep that in control, I think it'll basically maintain itself. So I did also. I'm not drinking beer, which is probably the hardest. To me, that's much harder than the meat. So I'm laying off that. I gave in one night and I had some of that honey whiskey, and that's the only day in 14 days. That's the only day that I didn't lose weight day on day. Was the day I drank the honey whiskey, and I said, well, maybe I actually will hang with this program the way it's specified.
So
Yeah, I guess I should have also mentioned that the giving up the beer, that's not going to happen either. But I guess I'll have my own version of this when I get to it.
So I am not into diets at all. I like to call myself a diet industry dropout. Mostly because for me that kind of scheduling and controlling it messes with how I think, and I end up getting into very unhealthy habits. But I am all about eating healthy and figuring out what's best for you and how to fuel your own body. I think that if we eat for the energy that we put out, if we think about what foods make us feel healthiest, these are good things. One of the things that's really interesting to think about, I know actually quite a lot about nutrition, and so it's very helpful for me in certain areas. But one of the things is, like, if we think about that food pyramid, what's on the bottom? That's our fruits and vegetables. And that is the biggest section. We're supposed to eat so many fruits and vegetables. But as North Americans, we really eat it like in an inverted triangle, because up at the top is the meat. And if you look at your meal, what's the biggest portion of your dinner? Generally, as a typical North American meal, it's meat. And you've got like a little bit of vegetables off. I'm trying to do the hand motions. A little bit of vegetables off to the side. And when you start trying to eat the amount of vegetables you're supposed to eat, it becomes overwhelming. As Dave said, like, I can't eat this much kale. There's so much food to eat. Like, how do I get it all in me? I've known people who have taken dried fruits and vegetables in capsule form to try to get the right amount. I'm like, I don't think it works that way. You really do need to eat the whole food. So I'm all about, buying raw vegetables to just snack on. Like, I've got in my fridge, I will just grab mini cucumbers and just munch on them and try and get as much as possible. It's very difficult considering my husband doesn't eat vegetables, period, which is like insane to me. I sneak them in there, like he'll eat some peas, maybe some broccoli, but I can't get him to eat vegetables. I'm like, you're driving me crazy. The other thing is, when we think about alcohol, so many times people think about strict calories and sugars. And what they don't understand is that our bodies react to alcohol in a very different way than they do regular calories and sugars. So you can't count them as simply calories. You have to, there's a formula out there for alcohol calorie. So when you're actually paying attention to this stuff, which like I said, I can't do because it's not good for me. If you are trying to pay attention to it, you have to pay attention to, you can't just count the calories or sugars that are in your whiskey or your beer. You have to count it using this formula. And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I can have this many and have this amount of food and I'm still good. And then you do the formula and you're like, wait a minute, wow, that's a lot more of my intake than I thought. But it's pretty fascinating with how different foods work toward for our bodies, and it's very important to pay attention to how does my body feel when I've eaten these foods, because every body is different, and some people are going to feel pumped on one thing and some people are going to feel sluggish on another. My niece is like addicted to kale. She is, once she discovered kale, she wanted kale in everything. And, she's like a little rabbit. She's 21 years old. I call her little still. Um, and it absolutely makes her pumped. And I enjoy some kale. I've found that there is a difference between the kale that's a garnish and the kale that you actually eat. And I'm like, okay, it's good, but it doesn't make me feel pumped. But you give me ahi tuna, like some raw ahi tuna, and I could take over the world. I could be Godzilla and tear down an entire city village. And she's like, whatever. So it's very interesting to think about how some foods work for some people and not for others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, like any kind of strategy that involves like a restriction or a counting or anything like that, never gonna work.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I like about this is, all right, we're restricting you only in the type of food you eat, but the quantity is eat until you feel like stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And the book kind of basically says the premise is that when you eat only nutrient dense foods, then that's the point. That's the point when you stop being hungry is when you've got enough nutrient.
Mm.
So part of the reason why you get hungry, from eating the diet that you do, and then you want more and more stuff and you snack, is because your body's still trying to get more nutrient. You didn't give it the nutrient it wanted, and then you're eating chips or you're eating something else, and you're still hungry, and you're never gonna actually stop being truly hungry because you're never gonna actually fulfill the nutrient you're trying to give yourself.
Right.
And, so many times like yesterday I made a salad. I was like, I'm gonna have the rest of this for dinner because I cannot eat the salad that I made. And it's certainly there's no privation to it. Like in 14 days there's never been a point where I thought, oh, this is tough sledding. I've certainly been on things where I said, oh, I don't know if I can hang with this. And it actually is. It feels real easy. It's like just. In fact, when we're done here, I'm going to go make a giant spinach salad and eat the heck out of it.
So what I do, it's called intuitive eating, and it's kind of along that lines. You eat for satisfaction, and once I was able to move past the idea of dieting, for me, dieting with my gamer mind, I end up trying to hack the system, game the system, and it gets very dangerous. I try to min-max. Doesn't really work with dieting. So after, a couple of months of this, all of a sudden I realized, I've never gotten full.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I say full, that's when you've eaten too much. I eat to satisfaction now, and I'm able to know when to stop. Whereas it used to be, I'd have to tell myself to stop, and I'd have to wait 20 minutes before I decided if I was hungry again, because my body wasn't telling me I was full in time. It wasn't telling me I was satisfied. And then once I started following this intuitive eating where I'm just eating for sustaining my body and keeping my energy levels up, I would eat till I'm satisfied, and suddenly this bizarre thing happened. I could leave food on my plate, which
Mhm.
is bizarre for me. I mean, growing up in a house with 9 kids, you never left food on your plate, so it's very conditioned in you. As I went through dieting and Weight Watchers, I used to envy people that could leave food on their plate because I just couldn't do it. It was this compulsion. I could not leave food on my plate. And now it's like, well, no, I can't eat anymore. So
Mm.
I'm not. And that's just it. And it's kind of liberating.
Yeah, I'm definitely like I'm the guy. You know how every Mexican restaurant has that everything special.
Yeah.
It's one of each type of thing, the taco and the chalupa and the thing. So I would be the guy. I could always get that, and I could always finish it.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, uh, when I got to the point where I don't order the big, I order a 6-inch at Subway. That was a big step. Like, I can actually be satisfied with. I don't have to get the biggest everything. Plus, there's always I gotta get the unit cost factor out. It's so easy to work on that. It's like, oh, but it only costs another 75 cents, and I get almost twice as much food. So, uh,
Exactly.
the modern American food marketing definitely has worked its magic on me. Always supersize everything because it's not that much more.
Yep. It's only 5 cents, and then you get a liter of cola.
So like it's weird. Like if you take, I guess on the 5-year horizon, like the number of things that I've dropped, that have slowly been dropping out. Like no sodas of any kind. Then when I stopped drinking coffee, and at least for this time period, it's like meat. And I actually I had to lick an ice cream cone to keep it from dripping all over Pumpkin's hands. And I had this moment of hesitation, like, am I actually gonna lick the ice cream? I was like, oh, just lick the ice cream cone. It was like I actually thought about it. I was like, do I have an alternative to licking? Can I just scoop it up with a napkin and throw it away? Because I didn't necessarily, I wouldn't have gone out of my way to eat it. I was like, oh, all right, we'll just do this.
You didn't want to start something.
That is kind of that is definitely, there's a certain on the wagon, off the wagon aspect of it. Like when I tell the story of how I lost, because I had been down around this weight before, for insurance premium reasons at the previous job, and then I lost control and I put 30 pounds on, and it started with a giant bowl of frosting and graham crackers.
Oh my God.
We made too much for her birthday cake, her second birthday. Made too much frosting, and I ended up eating the entire overflow frosting on graham crackers like every night until it was gone. And by the time I was done, I had put on about 15 pounds, and I had lost control. Because turns out eating frosting on graham crackers at 11 o'clock at night is not the best thing in the world for gaining weight.
It's not very nutrient dense.
No.
If you learn to make that work, please let me know.
I love baking. It calms me down. And so, if I can make cupcakes or a cake or cookies or whatever, I absolutely love it. But, I'm not going to just bake because each recipe requires like 24 cupcakes. I'm not going to just bake 24 cupcakes out of the blue. So anytime there's an event, I'm very excited to be able to do this. And then the whole idea of making too much frosting happens quite a bit. And years ago, that would have been a temptation, especially because I make fresh whipped cream. But now it's, honey, you want to lick? Take as much as you want. He takes a squirt from the piping bag, and then it's just water on top. And after a while, the temptation just disappears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's weird.
All right, my friends. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank you both for participating, and to Ken Kennedy for participating in the inaugural Hangout. If you guys have any, let me know. And if anybody has any ideas for the $60 and higher tiers, it seems pathetic that 2 tiers tap out every idea that I have. I don't know. I just can't think what would be a good thing to do for some of the higher tiers. So if anything occurs to you, please let me know, because I'm more than happy to provide it. It's actually kind of gratifying to me. I sort of expected there to be this market saturation point, and so like every time a new person signs up at this point, I just feel like I just do a little happy dance. I'm like, Has so far exceeded my expectations that it just makes me happy.
I have no idea.
No, I really don't have any ideas for that, but I do still love the podcast, Dave. I was very reluctant to. I was going to watch rather than join, just kind of to see what was going on. I was interested, but I'm not much of a, I wouldn't normally do this, but I wanted to just show my support. So hopefully I didn't wreck things too much, and it was great. I really, really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for participating and for being a patron and just being being a loyal, committed person. I think I looked at my email history and there was stuff from 7, 8, 9 years ago. So thank you so much for just for being there. Like, hey, 90% of life is just showing up.
Yep. I've been listening from almost the beginning.
I was actually, just right before we go, I was bummed out by this article that was going around. I think it was the Columbia Journalism Review about the 10-year anniversary of podcasting being, last month. It's like, God damn it, come on now. They were counting from iTunes. I was
of course they were.
From iTunes? No, you
Right.
don't. I don't want to.
The first podcast I listened to was Dave Weiner on his drive across Canada. I don't know that was the first, but that's the first one I listened to. And from there, it went to Adam Curry, not the current show, but the original show he had, original podcast he had. And he mentioned you very early on. And I think I came into you maybe third or fourth or fifth episode, something like that. And I don't listen to them anymore, but I do still listen to you.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I managed to. If you look at like every time you see advice on how to build your audience, grow your audience, and maintain your audience, I've violated every one of those. So the fact that anyone is still around and still cares is just a gift to me that I can never. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, and we will do this again. And again, thank you both for participating, and thank you to all the patrons. I love you. Bye.